In far north Queensland, there is a small town celebrating a big history. Alaris was established in 1920 as a World War I discharged soldiers settlement. The soldiers named their new home in commemoration of the taking of Alaris during the war. At the time, Alaris was part of Palestine. Today, it is a city of Egypt. During World War I, Egypt's Alaris was a critical supply base for Australian soldiers, saving many lives. Australia's Alaris flourished throughout the 20th century as the soldiers embarked on building a prolific sugarcane industry. "100 years later, in 2020, Alaris remains committed to preserving the significance of its rich history. To celebrate its centenary on 1st of August 2020, Alaris unveiled a new cenotaph featuring a rising sun forged by its local blacksmith. Experience the fascinating history of Alaris by visiting the Alaris Diggers Museum.
Fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream, good morning all and welcome. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we stand, the Gulnay people. I wish to acknowledge my respect for their current and emerging elders and those in dreaming. I thank them for their contributions they have made in building this community. Councillors, would we now please be upstanding, and Pastor Joshua Simon from the Innisfail Baptist Church will deliver the opening prayer.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor, councillors, members of staff and public. Just two verses before I share. One comes from Proverbs, said to be written by King Solomon, one of the wisest men to live. He says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." And the second is by another wise man, the person Jesus. And he says in John 15, verse 12, he says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than someone lay down his life for his friends. You're my friends if you do what I command." Just a reminder that I'm sure in public office, you know, it is to lay down your life. There's a cost involved. You get positive, negative, public views. There's a cost in doing that and loving your community. And that words from Solomon is the wisdom, is that you need wisdom to make good choices to serve our community. So I'm going to pray on those two things about serving and wisdom. So let's pray. Father God, I want to give you thanks. You're a loving, merciful God. I want to thank you for our council and the way they serve us and the cost involved in service. And we pray, Lord, that they count the cost well. Lord, pray, Lord, that you give them wisdom in the decisions that they make for our community, and that they make decisions for community in the community's best interest. Father God, we also want to pray for Ukraine and, Lord, the the mess that's over there. We pray to stand with these people who are suffering because of the decisions of what we'd say is poor leadership and self-interest rather than serving others. So, Father God, we want to pray that you'll intervene there, that you'll bring peace, and they might enjoy the peace that we enjoy in our country, in our land. And so, Father God, we just pray that our councillors will know your presence as they discuss the role of serving our community. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Joshua. Lovely words. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. Councillors and staff, we're now going to be upstanding to acknowledge 1 minute silence for two recent sad passings: Jason Wellhooner, a long-term council employee, and Michael Johnson, who was a contractor who did a lot of work for council, and two significant projects: the refurb of the Johnson Shire Hall after Cyclone Larry. Michael led that through his company Mega, and the recent rock wall stabilisation at the Innisfail Bowls Club. So with those few words, would you please be upstanding for 1 minute silence, please? Thank you. We now move on to apologies, and our CEO, Mr. Graffin, is an apology today, and I might add Mr. Goodman is acting CEO in his place for this short period. Are there any other apologies? I'll take that as a no. We now move on to the declaration of conflict of interest. Declaration of prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest. Please use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and the regulations. Councillors, are there any declarations? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, through Mr Mayor. Yes, I have notified the Acting CEO, Mr Goodman, and yourself that item 6.3, I have a declarable conflict as it is in close proximity to where I live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy.
Beg your pardon, and I will be stepping out.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Any further conflicts? Councillor Purvin.
Yes, Mr Chair, just through yourself, I have a prescribed conflict of interest in item 6.4, as I have current dealings with North Queensland Hotels. I've emailed the CEO, Acting CEO, and yourself prior to this meeting to inform you.
Thank you, Councillor Purvin. And I acknowledge I've received those notifications from Councillor Chewy and Councillor Purvin via email. Okay, we now move on to public question time, and I'll hand over to Acting CEO, Mr Goodman, to respond to what's happened with this one during the recent time.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very quickly, this month there's been no questions. There's no questions for today's meeting in public question time. There was one question that came in from the public, but that member of the public wasn't able to attend today's meeting, so we will be responding directly to that on that question to that member of the public.
Thank you, Mr Goodman. Okay, we now move on to item 1, confirmation of the minutes. Item 1.1, page 3, minutes of the local government meeting, 28th of April. Would somebody move that they were a true and accurate record, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 2, any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to item 2.1 in the agenda, the Bingle Bay Path was questioned last time about the design going up. The concept plan has been on the website for the last month. It will be closing down on the 4th of June, and we're just encouraging those that live in the area, those that walk the area, any member of the community that they need to have their say. Well, we'd like them to, because the plan that is up there is not the one that will be happening. We're asking your opinions, we're asking your thoughts. So please go online and let the council and the project manager and the planners tell us what you think. And Mr. Goodman might talk further to that as well. Thank you.
Through the chair, correct, Councillor Toohey, the plan that is available for viewing online and for public comment should only be viewed as a concept plan. Essentially, we are identifying where the concept for the path starts, where it ends, what the type of path it's intended to be, and then what side of the road it should be. And so beyond that, it shouldn't take too much detail about exactly where it is sits within the road corridor. We'll be looking for comments from the public, any stakeholders down there, and take those on board as we go through into the detailed design.
Thank you. And Mr. Fisher got back to me today and acknowledged that people that do make comments, that they will be contacted by the project manager or by the planners to add further conversation to what they have said on the website. Would that be correct?
Yeah, and through the chair, that would be the intent. There may be some very simple comments that we don't require any additional clarification, or we can take those on board. But yeah, if there's, it would be the intent that I guess we're not anticipating that we will get a huge number of commentary, and we'll be able to we'll have the resources to make contact with those people that provide feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Toohey. Any further business arising? If not, we'll move on to item 3, Economic Activation and Tourism. Item 3.1, page 63, and Mr. Blanchett will present this report. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning, Mr. Blanchett.
Morning, councillors. Okay, so presenting the summary of activity for the first quarter of this year, the third quarter of the financial year, January to March. So the report I'll take in as read. Just to note a few features of the quarter, January to March. One was a highlight for Cardwell, with the ABC radio broadcasting from our historic site at the Visitor Centre in Cardwell, featuring a lot of local stories, in effect over 2 days. There were too many stories to capture in the morning broadcast, so that was really positive for Cardwell. The Visitor Information Services Strategy was delivered to Council at the last meeting. Just to note that that's accessible. There's an information page on the Council website for community to access the information behind that strategy. We also had a local business at a state awards for caravan parks. So the Tasman South Mission Beach Holiday Park progressed to the finalists of those awards, competing with some of the biggest caravan parks in Queensland, and Council provided a letter of support for that. There's a quarterly report from Triple Coast Tourism. In the report, the main feature of the period was the review of the summer campaign, The Coolest Place to Be This Summer, which had a beautiful cover image of the Cardwell Spa pools, which was really well received at the recent expos we've been to. And finally, the stats from the visitor centres. Traditionally, the first quarter of the year, January to March, the centres are actually getting prepped for the new season. They're calling local businesses to top up brochures, as it tends to be quite a period of the year, January to March, this summer. And of course, this summer we were impacted with not having the international visitors back in great numbers at this stage. There's a good sign that you'll see in the stats that for the year to date, we're actually catching up to year to date last year and moving ahead of it. The other positive stat is that our Queensland visitors for the year to date, for 9 months, are already ahead of 12 months in the financial year ending 2020. So 2 seasons ago, we're actually ahead on Queensland. and still the demand is for experiences and things to do. So that summarises the report for the quarter, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchett. Councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Purban.
Morning, Mr. Blanchett. Just a really quick one there. Any reason why there was no statistics for Innisfail evicts?
Yeah, the Innisfail are in there, yeah. Yep. So if you look at the statistics, number of visitors at VIX by month, it's the orange bar in the graph. So yeah, so you got four colours. You got green for Cowbell, blue for Mission Beach, yellow for Tunny, and an orange for Innisfail.
Councillor McLeod.
Yeah, it's great to see that the great things are happening in our region, and they're coming. The pump track will be ready by the end of June, so that's exciting for that demographic. Red Bull Defiance in August. Reiterate, this event brings heaps of dollars to our region. It supports community groups and local businesses, and it's also linking their participants, and their supporters, which are over a group of 200 to 300 people, to Tropical Coast Tourism, who promote our region really well. There is in the report rebranding from TCT to Cassowary Coast Tourism, and TCT and Council have just returned from promoting our region in Cairns, Townsville and Mackay, so it'd be great to see those travellers coming up here in the near future from those.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. Any further questions or comments on that report? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blanchett.
Thank you, Mr.
We now move on to item 4, Governance, Environment and Finance. Item 4.1, page 79, Finance Report, and Gian Rimbaud will present this report. Welcome, Gian.
Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, David. I'll be presenting 3 reports today. 4.1, Financial Report for April 2022. 4.2, Schedule of Fees and Charges for 2022 and 23. And also the Budget Review, 4.3 to 38th of April 2022. So the first one is our the financial report for the period ending 30th of April 2022. I'll give you a few highlights. Our overall surplus of 12.2 million, which is 3.7 over budget compared to our budget of 8.5 million. Our operational revenue of 91.6 million, which is 3.6 million over budget compared to our year-to-date budget of 88 million. Our operational expenditure of 79.4 million, which is 29K under budget compared to our year-to-date budget of 79.5 million. Our end-of-month cash balance is 58.7 million. Our capital expenditure for the month was 1.5 million, with year-to-date capital expenditure totaling to 25.2 million, which represents 51% of our total capital works budget of 49.1 million. Our total expenditure, including commitments, totaling to 30.5 million, and that represents 70% of our total capital budget. I'd like to give you some explanation of some variances between our year-to-date actual and year-to-date budget. And these are, for our fees and charges, we are over budgeted by 488K due to increased searches, certificates, development, and development applications and approvals. We also have an interest under budget by 105K, predominantly relating to interest on investments, which are 49K less than the year-to-date budget. The recent investment rates have seen improvements in comparison with previous months. However, it is unlikely that the budget will be met by the year end. Our operating grants is over budget by 3.9 million, which is due to the receipt of DRFA Emergent Works funding from 2021 events that we have not budgeted of 799K, offset by grants under budget due to coastal hazard adaptation strategy not yet completed and claimed 194K, and early payment of financial assistance grant of 3.3 million. Our other revenue sources is over budget by 309K 19K due to the receipt of commission on steel recycling of 175K and other miscellaneous reimbursements of 184K. Our sales and recoverable works under budget by 223K with our MPC claims still to be processed. Our contract labor over budget by 398K due to backfill of vacant positions in health and safety, roads, parks, infrastructure management, community relations, water and sewerage, and waste program. Our materials and services is under budget by 348K due to our insurance savings, reduced maintenance expenditures, reduced chemical and material purchases across water, sewerage, and roads, and also the reduction in our electricity expenditure. Our capital grants is under budget by 2 million due to DRFA Barbed Wire Creek Bridge and Port Hinchinbrook sewage grants we not yet received. And that's all.
Thank you.
Guys have any question
Mr.
on the
Rimbold,
financial?
any questions for the officer? Councillor Millwood.
Yeah, through the chair. So I noted in the report that council's over budget with the contract labour. So my question is, do we have a plan in place to manage this in order to reduce the amount of contract labour going forward?
The council is our departments are trying to recruit more permanent people as soon as possible to reduce our contract labor at the moment. So that's what we've been doing at this stage to make sure that that amount will be reduced.
And in the budget risks, it says that there's risks associated with Port Hinchinbrook. So can you explain what the budget risks are associated with Port Hinchinbrook roads and sewage assets?
At this stage, I'll take that question in notice and I'll get back to you.
Any further questions for the officer? Just to supplement Councillor Millwood's question about the work situation and recruiting people, we do have a lot of competition currently from the Queensland Government, the flood recovery. They've just introduced a scheme called Tradies in Paradise. The first 1,000 tradies that put their hand up to come to Queensland to help with the recovery will receive a $1,750 bonus to re-establish. So yeah, competition is going to be really stiff to get qualified people because the Queensland Government strategy is to get tradies from interstate to recover from the flood and then start building for the Olympics. So we're going to be under the pump for a number of years, competition from state government, looking for qualified people. So I sympathise with our staff in terms of recruitment. Are there any further questions? Councillor Baines.
Well, a question and a comment, I think, Mr Mayor, and further to what you were saying, and Gian can probably answer this question for me, that the over-budget in contract labour is offset by the under-budget in our staffing costs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Balancing.
They're balancing.
Yeah. And further to, I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to item 4.2, page 94, schedule of fees and charges, and Mr Rimbold will present.
Yep. Council officers have reviewed the fees and charges. There are 833 fees and charges in total, with 329 remaining unchanged or reduced. A total of 49 fees have been discontinued and 49 new fees added into the schedule. Where considered appropriate, an increase has been recommended in line with the LGAQ Council Cost Index to 489 fees. Comments relating to some of the significant changes are as follows. Note 1, Finance. Majority of fees are unchanged with minor increases generally in line with the CCI for remaining fees. Note 2, Library. Photocopies have been consolidated to a single fee for both A3 and A4 photocopies. Meeting room hire fees have been standardized across the regional libraries and the Disaster Coordination Center instead of recognizing separate fees for each venue. Fees for fax and replacement membership cards have been discontinued. Note 3, mooring fees. Following on from 2021-22 mooring fees at the Johnson River Boat Harbor have increased broadly by 5% to be comparable with other mooring charges with our region and neighboring council regions. These fees have been increased to be closer to cost recovery. Clam Point boating facility fees have been increased in line with the CCI. Note 4, park and street furniture donations and memorial plaques. New fees have been added to the schedule in relation to the new park and street furniture donation and memorial plaque policy recently adopted by Council. Note 6, cemeteries. Cemetery fees have been increased broadly in line with the CCI. There have been no increases for columbarium fees. New fees have been added for lawn niche plaque replacement. Fee for purchase of land to construct wall vault in Innisfail has been removed in line with the proposed cemetery strategy. Relinquishing of reservation refunds has been amended to be 50% of the actual fees paid. Note 6, visitor information centers. Meeting room hire fees have been decreased to encourage increased usage. Not-for-profit community and charitable groups will continue to be entitled to a 50% reduction of the hire fee. The full fee may be offset by a council donation in accordance with council's policies and procedures. Note 7, family daycare fees. The educator administration fee per child per hour fee has been restructured to a sliding scale with a lower fee for those operators who have more than 50 hours per week of care. Note 8, environmental services and prescribed activities. Fees have generally increased in line with the CCI. Note 9, animal management. The declared menacing dog fee has been reduced by 200 from 550 to 350. New fees have been added for regulated dog collars, which are now required under legislation. Release fee, which is the initial release for unregistered dog, has been introduced to cover the administration cost of handling these animals. Release fees for second releases have also been increased to encourage responsible ownership by cat and dog owners. The sustenance fee of $15 per day after the first 24 hours has been introduced to cover the feeding animals held in the pound. Note 10, waste disposal. The state government waste levy will increase on 1st of July 2022 by $3 per ton to $88 per ton plus GST on applicable waste streams. Commercial dry waste and wet waste per ton fees have been benchmarked with neighboring councils to ensure CCRC remain competitive. Domestic quantities of green waste, recyclable materials, and domestic waste continue to be free of charge. Note 11, planning. Minimal increases in line with CCI have been applied against some planning fees, with no increase being applied to developer contributions. This decision was made in order to encourage growth within our region and stimulate the local economy. The new business application fee and free lodgement advice and inquiries fees will continue to be provided at no charge to assist those making lodgements to ensure their applications meet council's requirements. Note 12, water and sewerage. There has been minimal increases across water and sewerage fees, mostly in line with CCI and the cost of provision of the services. Backflow device register maintenance will continue as there will be no charge for these fees until after expiry of the amnesty period in February 2023. Note 13, aerodromes. To assist with cost recovery of operating the aerodromes, land fees and for recreational aircraft at Mundo have been increased to be more consistent across the region. A new fee for the itinerant aircraft parking has been introduced to discourage long-term parking of aircraft. Note 14, camping. Tally caravan park fees have been reduced for a period of 12 months to encourage greater usage of this facility. And lastly, Note 15, haul hire. Fees for the Innisfail Shower Hall have been increased to assist with offsetting the cost of running this facility. Not-for-profit community and charitable groups will continue to be entitled to a 50% reduction of a higher fee. The full fee may be offset by a council donation in accordance with council policies and procedures. Fees for other hall hire have been increased to attempt to recover costs associated with maintaining these facilities. A short session fee has been introduced for Cardwell Community Hall time periods of 2 hours or less.
Thank you, Mr. Rimbold. Any questions? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This question is to our relieving CEO. I know focusing on Clump Point, I know we've been hamstrung since its construction on completing what we set out to do. Now, reading this in front of us, does this mean that the 1st of July we can implement these fees to such a great facility?
Through the chair, Councillor Barnes, the issue with management of the Clump Point facility has not been the establishment of fees. It has been with some issues with our current local laws. And in item 4.4 today, Council is considering some new local laws and considering putting those out for public comment. It is so it's to provide a concise answer. It's not so much the amount of the fee. It's the local laws that support the management that has been hindering us in management of that facility.
So just further on, you're talking like a real CEO now. When do you think that we will be able to start charging and completely organise Clump Point?
Again, through the chair, it might be a good question to ask when that item comes up about the local laws, about a timeline to that we could actually see those implemented and adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Pervin.
Mr. Chair, just a question in relation to waste fees. There's been a bit of angst within the community about paying waste fees at our dumps for residential. None of these fees and charges are affecting the residential side, it's all commercial fees and charges, am I correct?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, John, thank you very much.
Councillor Millwood.
So within the fees and charges on page 6, I refer to the hall hire of the library meeting rooms and the information centre meeting rooms. So although the not-for-profit community and charitable organisations pay 50% of the hire rate, and there is an opportunity for these groups to have the entire fee offset by donations, how do they actually do that?
Mr. Goodman, you can answer that question.
Could stand corrected, but I believe there's an application to the CEO. I understand that form's on their website, Mr. Sadler.
Mr. Sadler has just confirmed that is the process for community groups to follow. Yep.
I just wanted them to be assured that there is a system in place for them to actually do that.
Good question. Thank you.
Park and street furniture donation and memorial plaques. Does this refer to members of the community being able to apply under the park and street furniture donation policy to have a memorial piece installed at a site approved by council but at the cost of the applicant?
Mr. Goodman.
Gian, through the chair, yes, that is what that fee is for.
Okay, and I got one more. I just wanted to mention that the state government now stipulates that regulated dogs known as dangerous or menacing dogs, or those defined by the Customs Act, are required by law now to be wearing a regulated collar. And those regulated collars can either be purchased from council or they can be bought online, and council also hires cat and dog traps. For further information, you can contact customer service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Any further questions for the officer? If not, will somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 4.3, page 143, the budget review, and Mr. Rimbold will present.
This budget review looks at the budget as a whole and how council is progressing in relation to its third quarter budget review. We've put in an Appendix A, which summarizes our capital works program summary, and also in Appendix B, our capital works program that details shows the changes to our capital project. As at 30th of April 2022, the council has spent 54% of its capital budget, excluding commitments, and 71% of its capital budget, including commitments. That's detailed in Table A. And also the RB3 budget review analyzes our current capital spend and budget, which has resulted in a proposed reallocation of funds within programs, as well as deferral of some projects due to council's capacity to deliver. With 2 months remaining of this financial year and upcoming wet season, our officers have scrutinized the capacity to deliver the current capital project. Council has faced some challenges in achieving the level of the capital expenditure which was proposed due to the impacts of COVID-19 and resourcing constraints. The 2.85 million reduction in capital budget is a result of the following. In the delivery services, we've reallocated the reallocation of Mission Beach CBD upgrade to Mission Beach Car Park of 175K. The deferral of the urban drainage, sealed roads, and Owen Street Innispell were 2.09 million to reserves. The next one, infrastructure services, facilities budget of 228K for Mundo Aerodrome CASA upgrades, and libraries budget of 32K have been deferred and transferred to reserve. Chief Executive, there's a transfer of 360K IT capital to reserve. Water and sewerage, there's only minor adjustment between capital projects. And for waste, we reallocated a budget from communication of 125 and also a 50K transfer from reserve. The appendix, the next one is our operational budget review. I detailed the reason for the variances in the earlier report at 4.1. So we're now focusing on, we've introduced our full year financial forecast. And as you can see in Table B, that we are projecting that we will have an operational surplus by the end of the year, 30th of June 2022, of 582,827, which is a net effect that in our forecast for our operating grants, we removed 3.3 million from the DRFA REPA construction work contract, and also we received a financial assistance grant of extra 1 million, which represent we budgeted 50% of that, but we received 50% allocation for the next year. So
Thank you, Mr. Rimbold. Any questions on that report? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, within the report there is a carryover of 16 million in the capital works program, which is concerning. So what measures do we have in place to assure this is reduced significantly in order to get the works delivered on time and on budget?
Mr. Gould.
yeah.
Through the chair, acknowledge that amount of carryover is far less than desirable. One of the I can provide a few excuses, but I don't think that's what that's not what your question was about. What are we doing in the future to do that? To so that we're not sitting with the same sort of answer next year. One of the key things as we go through in the make recommendations to council on next year's capital budget is having a serious review, not only on the whether or not the projects are good projects and whether they should proceed, but also having a realistic view of delivery and whether we can deliver those. So likely the projects that the total amount of projects that we will be recommending to council will be reduced from the drafts that you've seen to date, reflecting I guess a more realistic expectation for delivery. Beyond that, there's work that we need to do as an organisation to improve our capacity to deliver capital projects, but that's a work in progress, and I can't give you a definitive answer on exactly how we should or will do that. But it's certainly something that we do need to work on as an organisation. But in terms of, I guess, the main strategy for how we can be in a much better situation this time next year is to adopt a more realistic capital budget.
So on that note, do we see the deferred projects reaching completion within the specific timeframes?
Through the chair, those deferred, some of those deferred projects that have gone to reserves, they have gone to reserves because they, through the work that's happened this year, they're actually not recommended to be completed in the next financial year. But the majority of those projects are started. If you talk about we have 71% of the existing budget committed, so we've got arrangements in place to deliver those projects. And so the vast majority of those projects are substantially started but not finished by June 30. So that's a lot of that's a significant portion of our capital budget is still to finish in next financial year, and we need to take that into account in terms of our expectations for delivery of the balance of that capital program.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood and Mr. Goodman. Not an excuse, but a fact that council has had to deal with the COVID situation. We've had staff working from home. We've had staff off work because they've either had COVID or they've been in close contact, and we've had trouble recruiting people. So there's a combination of realities that have also contributed to the carryover, and I think we should acknowledge that. Okay, any further questions? Yeah, Councillor
Yeah,
Morris.
good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a positive note on expenditure. I think money that we're spending in the water department is definitely a positive, because look at the great rain event we had recently, and 12 months ago we would have had boiled water alerts, and we're not finished the water program, as we're well aware. There's another 5 million litre tank that's in the pipeline, so it's all positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Any further questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We move on to item 4.5, page 487, the operational plan, and Ms Kerr will present this report. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks for the pickup. Item 4.4, page 154, adoption of the proposed local laws, and Ms Kerr will present this report.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ms Kerr.
The Local Government Act empowers local governments to make local laws suitable to its needs and resources to achieve the purpose and principles of local government. The following local laws are attached in Appendix 1 and have undergone state interest checks. I'll just quickly read out what they are. Local Law Number 1, Administration. Number 2, Animal Management. 3, Community and Environment. 4, Local Government Controlled Areas and Roads. 5, Temporary Homes. 6, Bathing Reserves and Foreshores. 7, Human Remains. 8, Camping Grounds, Caravan Parks and Shared Facilities Accommodation. 9, Parking. 10, Advertising Devices. 11, Cane Railways. 12, Town Water. And 13, Swimming Pools. We also have 5 subordinate local laws that complement the local laws listed above. The state interest check process has now been completed, with several state government departments providing commentary and suggested changes. Council has considered all those suggestions and updated the draft local laws accordingly. It is recommended today that Council, under Local Law Policy number 19, Part B, making other local laws, and under Part C, making a subordinate local law, resolve to consult with the public under Step 4 about the proposed local laws in Appendix 1 and the proposed subordinate local laws in Appendix 2, for a minimum of 21 days, with submissions closing at 4 p.m. on Friday the 1st of July, and comply with the procedures prescribed under regulation for the review of anti-competitive provisions for the proposed local laws in Appendix 1 and subordinate local laws in Appendix 2, accept and consider every properly made submission about the proposed local laws, and require a status report be provided to Council following the completion of the public consultation and public interest test.
Thank you, Ms Kerr. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, Ms Kerr. Yes, Ms Kerr, this has been on the table for some time. Could you just explain to the people out there that what has been the hold up in getting this to the table, and then also how do the public go about the consultation process? Thank you.
Through the Chair, Council is required under legislation to consult with the state government for proposed making of local laws and subordinate local laws. That process with state interest checks does unfortunately take quite a considerable amount of time, particularly with the Department of Local Government, Infrastructure and Planning, whatever their new name is now. So that actually unfortunately did take longer than expected. It was way over 3 months for that state interest check to occur. So now that we have our proposed local laws ready, there'll be a web page on our website under major projects specifically for our local laws. That will go live after today's council meeting, and on that page we have how members of the public can submit any suggested changes or comments in relation to our local laws. Members of the public can come into our customer service centres and view hard copies of the actual documents, or we have each local law listed on our website with an online form that people can submit online. They can email in their suggestions, or they can drop off a written response to any of our customer service centres, the Mission Beach Library and the Cargill Library.
Thank you. There's obviously lots of options, which is great, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms Kerr? Councillor Baines.
More a comment, I think, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence. There's been a significant amount of work been put into this project. Local laws, sometimes the subject can be seen as a little bit dry, but there's been a great amount of work around the local laws being more specific to our region than sometimes the model local laws tend to end up being. Probably some of that specificity was the issues, bingo, that we may have had with the departments. They query some things that if they sit as outliers, but look, and I would really like to encourage the community, if they've got the time, have a look. You can pick out the local law that specifically may tweak your interest. Local Law 1 is most important, I think. It's a great piece for people to look at. But I would encourage everyone to have a look and have this is your chance to have your say. Give us your opinion and talk to us about what these local laws are. And as dry as it may be, governance rocks.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further questions or comments? I'd just like to make 2 comments in relation to the local laws. Mr Goodman commented earlier to a question from Councillor Barnes about why aren't we charging fees at the marina at Clump Point? Well, we can't do it without a local law. So today, we now put that vehicle in place. And another request from our community, a lot of expectation around why haven't you established dog off-leash areas? Can't do that without a local law. So there's 2 boxes that can be ticked by approving the local laws today. That's just an example. Any further questions or comments? Somebody moved the recommendation. Councillor Baines moved. Councillor Chewy seconds. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to 4.5, page 487, the operational plan, and Ms Kerr will present.
Thank you. Before you today is the operational plan quarterly review to the 31st of March. The statuses of each initiative are highlighted in the report, and I just wanted to make mention of there are actually 4 that are actually at risk in the report. Number 1 is the community survey. It's been marked as at risk mainly because of the timeliness. It was indicated it would be completed in Q2, and as we know, it's still out at the moment, so that will be completed in Q4 of the financial year. Initiative number 14, delivery of our capital works program, is at risk of not meeting the target. Number 19, prepare a climate resilient council action plan. And number 21, reduce the amount of waste going into landfill. If there are any further questions through the chair.
Thank you, Ms Kerr. Any questions for the officer? No questions? Would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to item 4.6, page 504, council policies, and Ms Kerr will present.
So council regularly reviews its policies and procedures to keep councillors, staff and other stakeholders up to date with regulations, technology and industry best practice. Council has reviewed the advertising spending policy with amendments to authorisations of advertising and social media, and those changes are highlighted in the attached policy document. Similarly, the receipt of benefits, gifts and prizes policy has undergone a review, and further clarity is provided in relation to prizes and raffle prizes and lucky door prizes whilst attending events on council's behalf. Council staff have drafted a new unreasonable customer conduct policy which supports and guides council officers to effectively identify and manage unreasonable customer conduct in a fair, consistent, transparent and appropriate way. This is to protect the health and safety of council officers, customers, councillors and others, ensure fairness in the complaints process and improve efficiency and commitment to appropriate resource allocation in all customer service delivery and the complaints process. It is recommended that council adopt the advertising spending policy, number 15, the receipt of benefits, gifts and prizes policy, number 10, and further that council note the new administration policy titled Unreasonable Customer Conduct.
Thank you, Ms Kerr. Any questions or comments, councillors? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Kerr.
Excellent work.
We move on to item 4.7, page 529, the federal election campaign. This was a request from the Australian Local Government Association for councils across Australia to support their strategy of lobbying for projects and programs across the nation. And I won't go through the recommendation, but just want to confirm that in point 2, item C, Mr Goodman has compiled our priority local projects for our federal members to pursue. And certainly we've had the new Prime Minister walk through one of the projects, that's the Mission Beach Master Plan. And we've had the local federal member, Bob Catter, also walk through there, along with Mr Shane Knuth, the state member. And the other high priority in terms of local projects is the housing crisis. We need state and federal assistance to deliver for the homeless. And further to that, our planners are lobbying heavily at state level to get a review of the FNQ regional plan. Doesn't matter what we put in our new planning scheme. If the FNQ regional plan doesn't change, we're limited, very, very heavily limited. And there's been some good news on that front. After 11 years, the state government has agreed for review. So there's a lot of wheels in motion with our local project request, but certainly we wait in anticipation for round 6 of the BBRF, which is an application seeking the federal funding for the Mission Beach Master Plan, which will be a major attractor to the borders being opened and tourists wanting to flock back to North Queensland. So some really positive stuff there, but without any further comment, do we have a mover for the motion, please? Support of the Australian Local Government Association. Moved by Councillor Purvin, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 5, asset sustainability. Item 5.1, page 532, declaration of sewerage service area, Port Hinchinbrook, and Mr Bradford will present.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors.
Morning, Mr Bradford.
Mr Bradford.
The report today is for council to commence, or council has commenced operations of providing a sewage service down at Port Hinchinbrook. This report is a step for council to declare the service area of the sewage service. and it's amending our current service area for sewage across the Cassowary coast. This is a step that's required for council to be able to levy a utility charge for sewage on those users down in Port Hinchinbrook into the future. The steps are set out. It's the service area. The legislation relating to this report is under the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act 2008, and so with council becoming the owners of the sewage treatment plant in December, along with 3 other lots, and also currently working through the process with the Coordinator General for the acquisition of a number of other lots relating to the sewage network, council effectively will become the sole operator or sole responsibility for the sewage service in Port Hinchinbrook. That means that all operating agreements and funding agreements for the operational side of the sewage effectively cease that are currently in place. So the few key risks in this that are being addressed as part of this report is a key management of financial risks. So with this report being adopted to define the service area of Port Hinchinbrook, council can levy a utility charge which manages that ongoing financial risk for the operation of sewage in Port Hinchinbrook. Also, there's still a few things that are outstanding. The Environmental Authority, council still has not got that resolved at this point in time, and we're still working through some options to make sure that's in place and working close with the liquidator and also the DES as the regulator. The plan from here, if this goes through today, will be to bring forward a utility charge as part of the 22-23 budget, which will be considered later next month. So just for a bit of guidance for the community members down there, the utility charge set by council will operate quite similarly to the other sewage schemes across the region. And the cost, I suppose, is not expected to be that $3,000 a year that has been previously communicated. This is due to council still operating the old infrastructure, and with that there is some ability for us to be able to operate that, I suppose, across the scheme of the year at a lower cost to what the new treatment plant will cost. It is certainly not sustainable for council to continue to use the current infrastructure there though, so the fee will have to be reviewed when the new treatment plant comes on board in the coming years. So the resolution today is that council resolve, or the recommendation today, sorry, is that council resolves pursuant to sections 161, 162 and 163 of the Water Supply and Safety Reliability Act to amend the declaration of council's service area for its sewage service by adding the service area shown in map 1 and described as Port Hinchinbrook, to declare that council be the service provider for the service sewage area in that service area, as amended pursuant to resolution number 1, and that the amendment in 1 above and declaration 2 take effect immediately, to publish a notice of the amendment and declaration in 1 and 2 above, and make that notice available for inspection and purchase under the Local Government Act 2009, give a copy of that notice to the regulator, update the map of council's service area for its sewage service to show the amended service area and location of sewage infrastructure servicing the additional land, and to authorise the Chief Executive Officer to take all necessary steps to implement the resolutions above. And number 7, council notes the consideration of a sewage charges will be provided as part of the budget meeting for 22-23.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Any questions or comments for the officer? Councillor Barnes first, and then Councillor Morwood.
Good, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bradford, due to the recent federal election, could you just speak on if there's any implications due to a change of government in the funding of this project?
For the sewage, the federal funding, council does have a signed funding agreement in place, so that agreement will continue to operate while we will remain in place whilst we're certainly meeting the milestones of that. Yes.
Councillor Morwood.
Yes, so through the chair. So the declaration that we have before us today is to distinguish the area at Port Hinchinbrook which will be supported by the Cassowary Coast Regional Council in relation to being the service provider for the sewerage, right? So does this set the rate for the charge of the new sewerage plant?
Through the chair, the report today is solely for the purpose of setting the service area. No charges are being considered today.
Okay, so we're purely defining the benefited area that will be affected once the new plan is operational.
This service area is certainly for the current operation of the sewage, so under using the current plant as well. It's just not considering any charges today. So this is just so council can now take steps to set a charge in the future.
Okay, and is there allowance within the conformed deed for council to actually be the service provider?
Through the chair, there is ability in the conformed deed for council to be able to be the service provider.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. I just want to talk in support of the recommendation by going to our corporate plan, and on the bottom of page 533, what do we want to see by 2025? A strong, diverse economy which provides opportunity for business and investment with an integrated approach to long-term planning where the region's assets meets the community needs. So this recommendation fits all those boxes. Strategic objectives encourage and facilitate investment in the region that will support both traditional and emerging industries and act as a catalyst for further employment and population growth. Again, the corporate plan ticks all the boxes, and we know that we've struggled to grow our population. I think it's a very good move in terms of council taking over the asset and now getting in place some of the guidelines we'll operate under. With those few words, I'll move the recommendation. Do we have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor McLeod. Any further comments? All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Bradford. We now move on to item 5.2, page 538, the CCRC capital report, and Mr Fisher will present. Welcome, Mr Fisher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Morning, councillors. Councillors, this is our monthly update on the Capital Works program. As was touched on earlier, we're about 72% through the annual program, including commitments, totalling $35.1 million. You'll see there on page 540 a list of recently completed projects. So even though the weather has been creating some challenges, we have been making some progress with some projects. I think if you draw your attention to page 541 and the table about funding, and it's important to note there's a couple of percentages that are lower than where we would like to see them given the time of year coming into the end of financial year. I guess touching on a few of those, the Cowley Beach Road Culverts, the contractor there is I guess improved performance and is currently has a program that shows them finishing before the end of the financial year. Obviously that's largely contingent on the weather given the nature of that work, but it's good to see a lift in productivity on that site. The Barbwire Creek Bridge, the asphalt works are one of the main outstanding items there, and that work is scheduled to occur this week. Again, just confirming availability of the contractor there given the wet weather and the impacts on the program. The South Mission Beach Path, we've received feedback there from Main Roads on our design and have facilitated the moving of the Telstra and the Ergon infrastructure that needs to be shifted to facilitate that project, and Main Roads have indicated that they are supportive of working with council to continue that funding into the new financial year. With TIDS, good progress being made there. Bingle Bay Road Culverts, we're just waiting for some fine weather to complete the headwalls on that project. The Tully Gorge Road, the liners for that relining project are on site, and the contractor Downer hopes to start on the 4th of June. And the Kennedy Creek Road, which isn't currently listed there, the contractor's proposing a start on the 12th of June. So I guess we'll work with those government agencies to make sure we limit the potential loss of any funding, but hopefully this stage of the year it's all looking positive. So happy to take any questions on any projects through the chair.
Fisher. Any questions for the officer?
Thank you very much, Mr Fisher. This question was asked previously here this morning, but I'll ask it to you. Do you see the pressure of any of our government funding grants coming under pressure before the 30th of June?
Through the chair, look, I guess from experience, the government agencies we deal with, have similar challenges to we do to us, and our challenges aren't unique across the industry. I think one of the key things that council needs to do is manage the relationships with those funding agencies, and I guess one of the things we do is be quite proactive in those conversations. At this stage, those conversations have been quite positive, and I guess that there's an indication that potentially coming into the end of the financial year, the government's looking to spend money, so there might in fact be some additional money available, and there might be some sympathy if we don't deliver for the end of financial year. So I guess all we can do is continue to really push hard with our contractors and our own crews to deliver the work and manage that relationship with the state and federal governments, Councillor, and that's really the best we can hope to do.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any further questions for the officer on that report? Somebody move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Toohey, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We move on to planning services, item 6, 6.1, page 553, application for reduction in infrastructure charges, and Mr. Jones will present.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Council is in receipt of a request for 100% reduction in infrastructure charges relating to the reconfiguring of one lot into 5 lots on land at 9 Vipiana Drive, Tully Heads, Queensland. The application was approved by Council via delegated authority, subject to conditions on the 17th of November 2021. The site is within the Township Zone Villages Local Plan and Residential Precinct, as designated by the planning scheme. The subject site contains an existing multi-unit dwelling consisting of 2 flats, and the proposed development will create 4 new lots, each approximately 1,000 square metres with a balanced lot. The 4 proposed new lots will be accessed via Tully Heads Road, and the balanced lot will be with the existing multi-unit dwelling utilising an existing access point from Vipiana Drive. The lots will be serviced by reticulated water, telecommunications and electricity. Future dwelling houses will be required to construct on-site septic systems. Proposed development complies with the eligibility criteria and assessment criteria, and therefore is recommended that the request for 100% reduction in infrastructure charges be approved by Council, provided that all works associated with the development, as contained within the reconfiguration of a lot approval and any other statutory requirements, are completed prior to the 17th of November 2024. Happy to answer any questions, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Millwood. Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor McLeod. Any further comments, councillors? All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 6.2, page 561, application for reduction in infrastructure charges, and Mr. Jones will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council is in receipt of a request for 100% reduction in infrastructure charges relating to a building permit for 2 3-bedroom houses being for community residences on land situated at 148 Marillion Road, South Innisfail. The application was approved by a private certification, subject to conditions on the 6th of May 2022. The site is within the Township Zone Innisfail Local Plan and Residential Precinct. The site has had an existing dwelling house, which has since been demolished and is surrounded by existing residential development. Proposed development will consist of the construction of 2 new 3-bedroom houses, which will be used as a community residence. The houses will be accessed via Turner Street and serviced by all urban services. The proposed houses are for special disability housing, providing long-term accommodation for people with disabilities within the Innisfail community. Proposed development is consistent with the intended low-density residential activities identified within the planning scheme. Proposed development complies with eligibility criteria and assessment criteria, and therefore is recommended that the request for 100% reduction in infrastructure charges be approved by Council, provided that all works associated with the development as contained within the building approval and any other statutory requirements are completed prior to the 6th of May 2025. Happy to answer any questions, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Councillor McLeod.
This is really a good news story. Housing crisis across the state, and this is really good news to see that 2 brand new 3-bedroom community residences are built on one block. This will be the first specialist disability accommodation under the NDIS scheme for the community of Innisfail, and it's great to see a local owned family company that's investing nearly $2.5 million into the Cassowary Coast local economy, and it will be a purpose-built accommodation for 6 local community people. So it's just, good news all the way around, and I'm happy to move
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. Moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Bain. Did you want to make a comment as well, Councillor Baines?
I would like to reiterate Councillor McLeod's comments. It is great that these projects are starting to come forward, and I just wanted to, we say this every time that we have these conversations, this is not about giving money to developers, this is about encouraging this most appropriate sort of development in the region and development that we sorely need, and in the future then it may not be the need for any reduction in infrastructure charges because we'll be hitting the targets that we're aiming for. But we really are hitting those targets, and we're getting people building in the places where we have all the infrastructure waiting, and it's only going to benefit the region as a whole. One coast, Cassowary Coast.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further comments or questions, councillors? I'd just like to make two supplementary statements supporting Councillor McLeod. This type of policy does address the housing crisis, but it also addresses the long-running issue we had even before this policy was introduced, land banking. It defeats both. It ticks the box with the housing crisis, but it also addresses DAs that were approved and they lapsed because they never went ahead with it. This policy encourages people to build it within the 3 years or they don't get the discount. Simple as that. It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. I will step out now.
Sorry, Councillor Dewey, step out. Item 6.3, page 570, application for proposed works. Mr Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council in receipt of a request for a 100% reduction of the infrastructure charges relating to the reconfiguration of a lot, 1 into 4 lots on land situated at 22 Midshipman Street, South Mission Beach. The application was approved by Council by delegated authority, subject to conditions on the 11th of May 2022. The site is within the Township Zone, Greater Mission Beach Local Plan and Residential Precinct. The subject site is currently vacant and surrounded by existing residential development. The proposed development consists of creating 4 residential lots, which will be accessed via Midshipman Street and be serviced by all urban infrastructure. Additional lots on site will accommodate new residential development in the future, which is consistent with the intended low-density residential activities identified within the planning scheme. Proposed development complies with the eligibility criteria and assessment criteria, and therefore is recommended that the request for a 100% reduction in infrastructure charges be approved by Council, provided that all works associated with the development as contained within the reconfiguration of lot approval, and any other statutory requirements are completed prior to the 11th of May 2025.
Thank you, Mr Jones. Any questions or comments, councillors? Moved by Councillor Pervin, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 6.4, page 577. And
Chair,
Councillor Pervin.
I'll be leaving the room for this one, Mr Chair.
Can you ask Councillor Chewy to come back in, please? Yeah. Oh, she comes. Okay, over to you, Mr Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council has received an application from Far North Hotels for proposed building works for an open outdoor dining structure situated on part of the road reserve on Grey Street in Innisfail, adjacent to 42 Fitzgerald Esplanade, also known as the Imperial Tavern. The Imperial Tavern Hotel is currently undergoing significant renovation, and as part of these renovations, it is proposed to provide an outdoor dining area on the footpath along Grey Street, adjacent to the northern boundary of the site. It is also proposed to provide a designated outdoor smoking area, while still allowing for pedestrian access to cross the intersection. The proposed outdoor dining structure is to be freestanding, with a floor area under roof of approximately 76 square metres and a maximum height of 3.3 metres. The structure is proposed to accommodate approximately 46 patrons in a seated arrangement, with an additional designated outdoor area for smoking. The Innisfail Strategic Master Plan has identified Fitzgerald Esplanade to provide an enhanced riverfront dining experience, inviting all to play, stay longer and enjoy. Therefore, it is considered that the proposal is consistent with the outcomes of the Innisfail Strategic Master Plan. The application was also assessed under Local Law Number 1 and Local Law Number 4. The proposal is considered to be consistent with the purposes and outcomes of the relevant local laws, given that it is capable of complying with the footpath dining guidelines. Therefore, it is recommended that the applicant be advised that council approves the works for an open outdoor dining structure situated on part of the road reserve and associated outdoor dining. Application on Grey Street, Innisfail, on land adjacent to Lot 2 on SP 22242, situated at 42 Fitzgerald Esplanade, under Local Law Number 1 and Local Law Number 4, subject to the applicant entering into an infrastructure agreement with council. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr Jones. Any questions? Councillor Barnes and then Councillor Millwood.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Looking at this, Mr Jones, the walk-by public, will they be affected by the outdoor smoking area?
Through the chair, thanks for your question, Councillor Barnes. There will be setbacks under the outdoor dining guidelines and designated outdoor smoking area guidelines, where they have to provide a 2 metre space between that and the outdoor dining area where people are seated and eating. There's also a 2 metre pedestrian walkway, allow for wheelchairs and pedestrians, that we've left there as well as part of this.
Councillor. Yep.
Excuse me. One last thing. This won't be a safety issue. It won't affect traffic coming around that corner. They won't block their vision in any way.
Through the chair, that's why we've asked for an infrastructure agreement, so we can nut out those issues in regards to conditions.
Councillor Millwood.
Yeah, through the chair. So I think this is great too, that people are coming to town and opening up new businesses and making the place a bit more lively. I do have a couple of questions. Has council considered the safety of pedestrians in the space, and does this provide the amenity required for those who are disabled?
Through the chair, there's a 2 metre wide walkway which is in accordance with the guidelines, which allows for pedestrians and wheelchairs.
Okay, and will this become an asset to council?
Through the chair, no.
And does the public liability in this space become the responsibility of the applicant?
Through the chair, that's correct. So the applicant must provide $20 million public indemnity liability to council.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor Baines.
Oh, and probably a point, I think, Mr Mayor. I think the community also needs to realise that this application does not sit extraordinarily to our other local laws that are already in place. All business owners who have roadside dining, that the rules will be exactly the same for everybody in this space. We're not doing anything special. It's just the same applications that everyone puts into place. So I'm very supportive of the proposal, because I can see other business houses along that stretch in the future that will become very encouraged, and development will be kicking along on Fitzgerald Esplanade. Beautiful place.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further comments, councillors? Mr Goodman.
If I could, thank you, Mr Mayor. There has been a little bit of confusion about using the term infrastructure agreement, because that is terminology that's normally utilised in, I guess, in a more formal sense under the Integrated Planning Act. It may be better just change the words around and just have a formal agreement about infrastructure, which is essentially is what we're wanting to get to here, is to make sure that ensure that we're agreeing to something that's all those safety issues have been properly considered, and formalise an agreement about long-term ownership and management and maintenance of any structures that are built.
Before I ask somebody to move the recommendation, I just want to say, somebody that was born and raised in Innisfail, the Impey has been iconic in my life, and it's wonderful to see it reopening. But also there's been a huge expectation in the community that council would focus more on the riverfront. We've done that with our master plan. The Feaster Centres have moved their activities down to the riverfront. They call it River Feast now. It's happening. And the other thing that the community want is al fresco dining, and this approval will deliver al fresco dining in the riverfront precinct. So it's a great outcome. Would somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor.
I'll just grab Councillor Purban. He's not there.
some of the terms we use, Mr. Acting CEO, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, can be a little confusing at times, can't they?
When we're used to using terminology in one particular, I guess, framework, then you forget that the language can be utilised elsewhere as well. Yeah, so it's yeah, correct.
Okay, that brings us now to item 8, general business, and as I indicated at the last meeting, the first item of general business going forward is going to be the Mayor's monthly report, something that other councils do, so we're not inventing the wheel here. It's not for lengthy discussion today, but just for the people that have been watching our meetings and sitting out there in the community who want to know what councillors do from week to week and month to month. This will go on our website today, and you can follow the activities of all 7 councillors. This is not all the meetings they've attended, but these are the councillors' highlights. So that Mayor report will appear on the council website as of today. Any further general business? Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Firstly, I would just like to acknowledge that it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and this week, and I thank those in the room that have worn purple and those in the community who have embraced this as well. And also, in the same vein, acknowledge that the people of community of Cardwell have installed a red bench in Cardwell. Councillor Barnes was able to attend that. The red bench was supported by Cardwell Lions and Churches of Christ and installed by our own regional council. So thank you to that. And some people sort of look at a red bench and wearing purple as well, you're just doing something. But this is to raise awareness, to start a conversation. Years ago, domestic violence was not touched upon. People just lived in quiet and in shame and put on makeup and went uptown and talked to their friends and pretended that nothing happened. But by wearing purple and sitting on the red bench or asking what the red bench is about, it enables to start a conversation. So if you or anyone you know is affected by domestic violence, please reach out. The Tully Support Centre is a great space. Innisfail has support centre as well. So please reach out and seek some advice or talk to your friends or do something. You're not alone in that circumstance. So thank you everybody who has participated in that. Moving on, I would like to let everybody know that the Tully show is the 22nd and the 23rd of July. The entry forms are out. I deposited some entry forms to Mission Arts yesterday to our libraries. And the Show Society is a small group of people that work very, very hard, and they're very keen to anybody that'd like to come on board to volunteer, whether it be in the lead up to the show. There's prep work that needs to be done on the day of the show. It's the best day of the year, as far as I'm concerned, as you all know. Unofficial Tully Show Queen. And self-appointed title, Councillor Barnes. But yes, I'll just reach out to community. We need to keep our shows here. If we lose our people that organise it, we risk losing the event, and we certainly don't want that to happen. It is a tourist, people come to the show from out of town. I know our visitors love the Tully show. It's a regular highlight for the nomads as well. So thank you to that. If I could just ask Mr. Sadler to come up, please. I just have a couple of questions. Thank you.
Sadler.
Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Just regarding to the Mission Beach transfer station, if you could provide us with a date, an opening date, please. And I've been down there, and the layout is obviously set out to make the separation of our waste more accessible. So if you could just give some conversation on that, please.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, Councillor Chewy, from last week's councillor site tour of the site, I know it was a quick visit. It's still on schedule, the project, for practical completion by the end of June. The next task is obviously putting up the shed for the tip shop, and obviously that's been weather dependent, so there has been, I suppose, a little bit of delay over the last couple of weeks in relation to kicking that off. Materials were there to kick that off, so hopefully this week, I haven't been to site this week, but hopefully this week we start that process. And as you said, that I suppose the layout and design has been around enabling our community to separate their waste streams moving forward, and obviously make it a better site to be utilised, but also from a safety perspective for our customers.
Thank you. Have we got anyone likely to take over the tip shop yet? or is it still out to community to look for people on board, come on board?
Through the chair, Councillor Chewy, we did go out to market in relation to getting operators for the tip shop facilities. That hasn't been a successful process at this stage, and we're currently doing a review of that documentation to go back out to market.
Thank you, because it is a popular tip shop back in the day. Yeah, thank you. Just on Wheatley Park, I know the submission have closed. I believe we received close to 80, which was fantastic. And just talking to the team, it seems that the community are on board for the nature play. That was very much the popular thread of the conversation. Could you just give me an update on what happens next, please?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, Councillor Chewy, as you said, there was a lot of feedback, almost 80 responses, and the majority were in favour of that approach. There was a lot of commentary from that consultation piece and feedback that the technical team is going to take away and obviously do a review of the design and how the layout is, and I suppose what the services that we do deliver moving forward. So yes, it closed on Monday, so they're hot off the press. We still have yet to go through all that feedback and obviously go through looking at the design. We'll keep council and the community informed with that once we've reviewed that feedback and what the next steps are.
Thank you very much. That's me done.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Any further general business? Councillor Millwood.
Yes, through the chair. So last Friday, I attended the FNQ Rock meeting in Cairns along with Mr. Hammond, and very pleased to announce that the contract for the regional waste management strategy has been awarded to a company called Arup. And what that means for us is once this is completed, it'll help us direct our own council with our strategic waste plan to further meet the 2050 national targets in the reduction of household waste, the reduction of waste to landfill, and it will increase the recycling across all waste streams. So it's a pretty good space to be in.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, I've just had a few community concerns in relation to going cashless. I'm just asking if the CEO could take on notice to allow for some cash to be continued to be used. Constituents have approached me and said in relation to going cashless, it's going to affect things as going to the libraries, paying for small amounts of figures there if they haven't got cards, or even just for 50 cents to use a card to pay that. Another one that could be affected is morning melodies. I'm just asking if the CEO could just take this on notice and look into this before making the decision to go cashless for everything.
Thanks for your comment, Councillor Pervin. Can I suggest that this is an operational matter? We didn't actually pass a resolution for this to happen, but having looked into the background of why the EMT considered this matter, the amount of cash going on across the front counters in our offices has diminished dramatically. It costs us $8,000 just to secure the funds in terms of a security company. I've asked our staff to do an investigation into the man hours that are involved in tallying up the cash, issuing receipts, etc. But look, at the end of the day, councillors are entitled to have their opinion on this matter, and my strong advice is that you should bring a notice of motion to the next meeting so proper consideration can be given to your request. Rather than asking the CEO to review an operational decision, it might be better if you put in a notice of motion for next meeting, and can it be addressed correctly? Yeah, okay. Any further general business? Councillor Millwood.
Sorry, through the chair. I just wanted to say if you're free on Saturday, there's take a drive to Alaris and support the Community Fun Day at the Alaris Community Hall from 10 o'clock in the morning. They're raising funds to support their 100th centenary of the Alaris School.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, through the chair. Business owners, operators, business growth grants opens on the 31st of May and it is a competitive funding round. So funded projects are expected to increase confidence for growth, transitioning from small to medium-sized, increase productivity, turnover, profit and employment by 20%. And also, good note, last month the Mayor signed a small business charter with Small Business Friendly Council, so we are now a member of that. And we're also pleased to announce the launch of the new project page doing business on the Cassowary coast. This page will feature key business supports available, reduction of red tape services through the use of the Business Launchpad, available funding, and the Small Business Friendly Council features, which include a direct email contact, which will act as a business concierge. So if you have any feedback, suggestions, or queries regarding small business, this is your go-to contact. It's SBFC, which stands for Small Business Friendly Council, at ccrc.qld.gov.au. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. Any further general business items? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to let people know that our sugar industry has started. Tully has started, South Johnson's very soon. And it's very nice to see our whole 4 graders out and about today, getting the all our unsealed roads up and ready for the transportation of mainly sugar. So just be aware of the trains and increased traffic on the roads due to the industry starting. Also this weekend in Tully we have a Super Saturday, a whole day of rugby league, and I know that there's been the grandstand, as good as it is, it's wonderful structure. It has had a lot of issues that we have fixed. We are still having trouble with the lift. Would their acting CEO have any response to where they think we should be going with that at all? Because is it a safety issue if we have medical problems? Mr. Goody?
Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question, Councillor Barnes. Look, any facility where we're providing those lifts where there are issues, we need to have a plan to address them. I'm not across all the detail of the latest fault, but previously it's just required a reset to get that lift functional again. We can perhaps one of the things that we can do is some better management. It's an understanding of what that facility is. It's a facility that is slow. We went for a fit for purpose lift there. I guess we didn't anticipate the number of people in the community that would be thinking it was more of a joyride facility than a lift. So that has caused some issues. The people that are utilising that facility could assist us by managing the visitors to that grandstand, but of course its performance has been less than desirable, and we'll work to improve that.
Thank you very much. Just while Mr. Sadler's coming up to the microphone to answer different ways of putting CRs in for the public, I'd just like to say this council and other councils are having a major problem with the mosquitoes. Years ago we fogged. Now under state government pressure we're not allowed to fog, but there is work in progress of different ways of removing mosquitoes. I'd just like to tell fellow councillors about that. Mr. Sadler, the many community meetings I've attended recently, they love the CR, when CR, to those who are unaware, is customer request. The different ways that people can put customer requests in.
Yeah,
Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your question through the chair. There was some media the comms team did recently. There's 7 easy ways for our customers to connect with council. First one is via phone, and it's the 1300 763 903 number. That's 24/7. We've got our email.
which is inquiries@cassowarycoast.qld.gov.au. There's the app, Snap, Send and Solve. There's also, you can visit one of our customer service centres across each of our main town centres. You can actually contact your counsellor, which, all the counsellors connect with our customers every day of the week. You can write us a letter and direct it to the CEO. And there's also our website, which has a whole portal there in relation to raising customer requests.
Couldn't have answered that better myself. Thanks very much. Recently, I was lucky enough to visit Dunk Island, and I suggest anybody who's passing that way just have a look at the little bit of money we've spent over there, and we've got value for money. It's very impressive. It's really well done by our officers. And lastly, tonight in Cardwell, we have business owners speaking, our tourist operators and tourist bureau speaking at a business night commencing at 5:30, and that's at the community hall. Not the community hall, the country club, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Any further general business?
Well, you knew I was coming, didn't you?
Thank you,
Mr. Chair. First up, Mr. Chair, I'd like to give just a very quick report on the Feral Pig Executive Oversight Committee meeting, the second one that there's. I can say, I'm chairing it. I'm not saying it's Cassowary Coast led, but we are definitely facilitating these meetings. It was an excellent meeting yesterday. All stakeholders turned up. It was a very cooperative meeting, and we're starting to talk now about the proactive management of feral pigs in our region. For years and years, we chase ourselves around by the tail, reacting to pig issues as they arise. We've got a bit of time in this space. All the stakeholders are coming back to us with their priorities and hotspots. There's so much data there that we can pull together. So I look forward to the future where local government, state government, federal government and landholders and stakeholders are working together, and we're dealing with this significant issue proactively and getting some real work done. I commend the council on their efforts in that space, and I can assure you that they will continue, and please let the community know we have been doing some great work, and we will continue to do the great work. Last but definitely not least, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to commend the council, the community and the councillors. We attended the Reconciliation Week launch this morning and a breakfast that was zoomed into many sites around the state, including Parliament House. We had the new governor speaking, of course the Speaker of the House, the MC was a proud Cowboys fan, which was fantastic. So it was a really enjoyable space to be in. And I think, Mr. Mayor, with the change in the federal government, there's going to be a lot more action in that space, and I really do, again, commend everyone who got involved, and let's look forward to moving forward together in this space. So,
thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Councillor Baines. As they said this morning, the theme, be brave, make change. Yes. I've got two general pieces of information for councillors and the community. The council's forward planning on our cemetery strategy is now out for community consultation until June 3. If you're approached by members of the public who want to have input, please refer them to our website. That's the project website, and I'll state that site. It's www.cassowarycoast.qld.gov.au/cemeteries management strategy. That's all one word. So if you're approached about input, our website's the best place to do it. Further to that, following the election on Saturday, I spoke to Acting CEO Mr. Goodman to get comms on board to prepare letters, correspondence to new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and returned federal member for Kennedy Bob Catter. Importantly, contained in the new Prime Minister's letter was a reminder that he came to Mission Beach, he walked the master plan, he gave no commitments, but he heard loud and clear from our planning staff how critical this project was to our recovery in terms of what happened after Cyclone Yasi and Larry, and the borders being closed with COVID. They're now open. Tourists are going to flock to Queensland, and one of the big attractors for Cassowary Coast would be a revitalised CBD at Mission Beach. It's absolutely vital. We've all heard the rumours about Dunk Island. We've gone out to tender for the Spit. There's a lot of good positive feedback there, but without Mission Beach being resurrected, the hook, as they call it, won't be effective, and we really need. We've got skin in the game. Ratepayers funded the car park, $1 million. We need our hand up now from the feds in terms of $7.5 million to deliver this wonderful project. And as we've said many times, Mission Beach Master Plan is the legacy project for our 2020-2024 term. So hopefully Mr Albanese will note that I wear a red shirt, I've got a red roof, and I'm asking for help. Are there any further general business items? I'll declare the meeting closed at, what is the time? That clock's wrong. 10:37. Thank you, everybody.